Hey, read through the word. Here I am. Today's July 1st, and I am so glad to be back with you. And today we are in the book of 2 Chronicles. Today's lesson is called Faithful Before the Lord. I am using this verse, 2 Chronicles 31, verse 20. In this way, King Hezekiah handled the distribution throughout all Judah, doing what was pleasing and good in the sight of the Lord his God. I'm going to go ahead and do 21 too. In all that he did in the service of the temple of God and his efforts to follow God's laws and commands, Hezekiah sought his God wholeheartedly. As a result, he was very successful. Okay, so here we are in 2 Chronicles, and it's been a while since the Lisa lesson. There's a few things I want to talk about here. There's some connections I want to help make, and I want to bring a few things together. So, and I'm so excited to be back here. I probably will talk too fast. I told Linda, I said, I feel rusty. I'm like, am I standing in the right place? Do I have my camera in the right place? The last time I taught a lesson was in March. I took April, May, and June off for surgeries and treatment and everything. So it's getting back on the bike, and so I'm sure I'll get back in the flow, but today I might be a little rusty, so I'm so sorry. But here we go. I want us to take a look at things. So I usually have a stack of books in front of me, and I'm trying not to knock everything off. But here we are in the most confusing part of the Old Testament. And I will say this, since I joined in 2020, I said it in 2021, now here I am saying it in 2022 as well, that this part is the most confusing part of the Old Testament for people, which is why chronological helps so much. It is what unlocked it for me, which is why I'm so passionate that we teach it this way. I'm so glad that we do. But here's the deal. You have this place where historical books, prophecy, and another historical book, 2 Chronicles. So if you want to go back to last year's lessons, right as we started hitting the Chronicles book, I do an overview there of a deep dive into, this is sort of like a middle dive, not a deep one. That was more of a deep. So go back to last year about this time and start looking for my lesson on 1 Chronicles. And some of you are really good and can find it really quick, which is why I just listed it and say somebody's going to hop in comments and tell you exactly where to go and look. So, and you can always pull those lessons back up and watch. And I think they're very helpful. I do them because I think if this was me, what would be the information that would help me be able to read this a little bit better. So here we are at the point of 2 Chronicles. Now, knowing that at this point, we are in 2 Chronicles chapter 31, and we're with King Hezekiah. Now, remember, you had the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. And in Judah, you only had, no good kings in the northern kingdom, and only a few good kings. 8. There's 8 good kings in the southern kingdom of Judah. None in the northern kingdom. Hezekiah is one of the good kings, because of exactly what we're seeing Hezekiah do. Hezekiah has restored proper worship in the temple. Hezekiah keeps the Passover in Jerusalem. Hezekiah, and right where we are in chapter 31, is Hezekiah breaking down all the idols and organizing tithes and offerings for the temple. So he's trying to get them back after what his dad had done, and granddad. So what they had done, and so what you're at spoiler, we're towards the end of the nation, so all of a sudden we're going to see prophets. So we're going to be a lot of time in the next few days of reading will be in the Proverbs, where the Proverbs are written during the time of Hezekiah. You'll have some of the Psalms that are written during the time of Hezekiah. And then you're going to start all of a sudden the prophets, because the time is winding down. By the time you're at the end of the book of 2nd Chronicles and 2nd Kings, done. We're in exile. So as Hezekiah is doing all this, it's a good time to remember what the book of 2nd Chronicles is what the purpose of it is. Totally different from 2nd Kings, because you'll notice it covers some of the material, but 2nd Chronicles only covers the nation of Judah. Doesn't talk about Israel, because it is about God and his covenant keeping. Now, let's put it in perspective. Why is this such a major theme in the book of 2nd Chronicles? Because of, okay, here we go, hermeneutics, people. The audience of the book, the original audience of 2nd Chronicles. Okay, that's where this is going to, this verse right here about Hezekiah and what Hezekiah does for God and how God works there is so important, because it is true for, it is information needed for the original audience of the book of 2nd Chronicles, which would have been Chronicles 1st and 2nd together, which would, the way they are in the Hebrew Bible, and the way, and then how will we take and apply that for us today? So it all connects. Now, if I'm moving a chart out of the way, what we see is Hezekiah has torn down the high places. He has led the nation. He has, what we see is that Hezekiah's faithful leadership is a blessing for his people. So this account of the faithfulness of Hezekiah is an important example in the context of the book. So Chronicles records the faithfulness of God to his covenant for the generation of the return. Okay, so the timing of the writing of the book of 2nd Chronicles. We're going, when we follow it chronologically, we're following in the timeline of things occurring, not when they're written. Because the original audience of those is all of these people, spoiler, that are being sent into exile, they will return home, because God told them they would. They're going to return home, and they're going to come home to some crazy stuff. Things aren't going to be the way they were when they left. They're a little, much like me today. It's a little rusty. We don't quite remember what to do. We don't know. There's this, mine's just been 3 months. There's just 70 years. They're going to go into exile. And when they get back, they're like, are we still the people of God? So what Chronicles does is Chronicles records the story of the faithfulness of God to his covenant through the Davidic covenant of the southern kingdom of Judah. And that's why only Judah is told. So what these people who are returning to this land need to remember is that God has a purpose for his people. Remember, we talked about this all the time, that God has a purpose for his people. He has a people who have a purpose, they have a place, and they have a position. We've talked about this all the time. And 2nd Chronicles is a reminder to these people who will be 70 years removed, 70 plus, quite a few years actually, removed from the time of Hezekiah. And what they need to remember is the people of God need to remember that they can trust him to be faithful. He made a promise and he will keep it. Look at what he did for good King Hezekiah. Now Hezekiah's going to have some mess ups, but that's Hezekiah, that's why we remember the purpose of the book of 2nd Chronicles right here is recording for these people that Hezekiah, when he did what God said to do, and when he was faithful to God, we saw that God blessed him. God blessed the people. God blessed what they did, because it aligned, when they were faithful to him, it aligned with the purpose they were given their place for, and that reminded them of their position as the people of God. So the story here is what we're given is the historical account of Hezekiah and being faithful to God and how God is faithful. But the question here is, will these people returning learn the lesson, be faithful to God, and watch what he will do with a people who have a purpose in this place? So this is a perfect question. Perfect question for the people during the time of good King Hezekiah. Because of his faithfulness to God, it was a blessing for all of those under him who followed his leadership. This new generation that will return to the land, will they be faithful to God? Because God's not done with them yet. He still has a purpose, and we'll learn about that when we get to the New Testament. He has a purpose for his people. Messiah will come through them. They're supposed to be there. Will they see the blessing of God by being faithful to him? So that same question that is placed there with Hezekiah, that's placed to the original audience in the book of 2 Chronicles, is a question now. In a world that does not look like anything like we thought it would look like. When the world around us calls us crazy for following the ways of God, how could he bless the world through us? How? Through our faithfulness to him. That's the question that stands before us today. And the charge, the exhortation to cling to him and remain faithful no matter what. See you next time on Read Through the Word. I'm glad to be back.